Hello, you may be wondering why I'm making this video pitch black by candlelight. I mean, if I was watching this, I would probably be thinking exactly the same thing. Well, let me tell you why I'm making this video. I'm making this video because I'm rather sick of the incessant power cuts in the part of Colombia where I live. And I don't believe that this is just a phenomenon that we experience in very rural areas of Colombia, because I've spent time in the cities as well, and power cuts are a big problem there as well. And I want to mention this because I feel that this kind of lack of public service provision is a very big issue related to general corruption in this country. I mean, today alone, this morning I tried to make some phone calls via WhatsApp to people in other parts of the world to do work, to talk to friends, and I haven't had internet working this morning since about 10 o'clock. Which means that I just haven't been able to do my work. I mean, the only way I've been able to communicate with anybody has been on my mobile telephone, and I certainly can't do any meaningful work on my mobile telephone. I can't talk to people that are far away. I can't send emails that are more than one sentence, which certainly isn't adequate for the kind of work that I do. And this is actually a theft issue because, like everybody else in this country, I pay for my internet provision. I pay for, here we call it loose, I pay for my power service. And I would say that I only actually receive provision, pardon me, I've still got a cough, approximately 30% of the time. Well, even before the pandemic, that made work very difficult. But now that we're in a pandemic and most of us are relying on remote working or remote communication to maintain all different kinds of professional and non-professional relationship, the lack of any kind of reliable power source or internet becomes a real serious issue. I'd also like to raise the issue of water provision. In the middle of the pandemic, I started to have problems with water access. There just wasn't, I'd turn the tap, there'd be absolutely no water whatsoever. And this situation would come and go. And then after a few months, I received an extremely threatening letter from the local water service provider to say that, perhaps I was causing the water problems or something. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. And all my neighbours received the same kind of threatening letter. And then it sort of transpired that they were sort of just trying to charge everybody to do repairs that they hadn't, actually bothered to do, and that members of their company had just run off and stolen all the money and something like that. And we see similar situations going on with the roads. Where I live, there have been ongoing roadworks now for about a year and a half. And when I say roadworks, what I mean is some materials that were presumably meant to be used to actually do the road repairs were literally just dumped in a very rural road situation where, of course, over time, with lack of maintenance, lack of protection and tropical weather system, we now just have materials sloshing everywhere. We have criminal gangs stealing what remains, so that brings in a crime problem. And we see the local government taking absolutely no responsibility whatsoever, and certainly not finishing the road. But it seems that the road is not priority, because actually what really matters is just that, various landowners can parcel off their land and turn them into big housing estates without building any infrastructure around in the form of roads, schools or hospitals to support an increasing population. And I want to make this point because I feel that all these issues are very much connected. It's this issue of sort of theft and corruption and nothing being finished and nobody being held accountable. When people just sort of do a bad job and then a few people run off with a bit of with money, and then the costs are just palmed off on local people that have already paid over and over again for services that they never received and will probably never receive. And I don't see the national government doing anything about these issues. So anyway, I'm really fed up with it, and the fact that I'm sort of sitting here making this video by candlelight is a reflection of that. So I will continue to spend my evening, you know, burning the candle at both ends, quite literally. And I don't necessarily expect things to change here, but I felt that, you know, I'm just so furious about it, and I just don't see how we can become a modern nation, a functioning modern economy, when you can't even turn the light on in 2020 reliably. You can't schedule a virtual meeting and feel that actually you can guarantee that you can be there in the morning, because you don't even know whether you can charge your computer overnight, first of all, or whether the internet is going to be working, and the chances are it probably won't. So I consider all of these things to actually be criminal issues that are just sort of tolerated. It's like nobody takes action. And why don't people take action? People don't take action because they're afraid of these companies and the corruption and the theft involved in these companies, and who's connected with them. So nobody does anything. Everybody just kind of accepts, you know, that they don't have light most of the time. They can't do any work. But it, you know, it's just not acceptable. And yes, so that's the end of my rant. I will leave it there. I never finish these videos in a very sort of concrete way, but that's because they're not scripted. They're just my thoughts as I work through these issues. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person suffering from these problems. I mean, imagine if you're working in a hospital right now and you can't turn on the equipment, so that you can't perform an operation. I mean, I'm just sitting here, you know, bemoaning the fact that I can't send an email, but there are people who are actually having their lives put at risk right now because of these issues. You know, they're very, very serious issues. Anyway, I will leave it there, and goodbye.